Um, Earlier this year, you had presented the 10-year challenge. Okay. If you could go back to 2008, 2009, what are the things that would you want to change in the advertising industry?
Well, first to talk about the last 10 years, I think they have been the most dramatic 10 years in advertising history. Uh, for example, I think during these 10 years, the market has grown, has tripled in size. That gives us a compounded annual growth of 12%.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah,
just
yeah.
take out my tea.
And what would you want to change in the advertising industry if you had
So
to?
I think first to start with, I think this has been the most dramatic 10 years, I think, in our advertising lives. The advertising market itself has tripled in size during these 10 years from about 20,000 to 60,000 crores, which means a 12% increase. The number of channels have multiplied on the back of regional and news. The number of advertisers have increased dramatically, especially in print, by I think about 88,000. Uh, Digital penetration has hit the roof. So really, in multiple ways, the advertising market has become very dynamic, fast growing, and if I may use the word treacherous. It's becoming more and more difficult to succeed for brands using advertising in this market. Uh, what would I have liked not to change? Well, I've been saying this for some time. I don't know if it's happened only in the last 10 years, but what has changed, unfortunately, is that advertisers have begun to look at agencies as businesses, and as agency professionals and agency promoters as businessmen. Unlike earlier, when they used to look upon advertising people as professionals, and I think this has brought with it a whole lot of problems. And I think one of the major problems that has kind of surfaced is the fact that unfortunately, when you deal with the business, you want to squeeze the business as much as possible. And this unfortunate, situation has led to a huge quality talent crunch. You know, even 10 years ago, I think we were able to attract talent from, if not A grade business schools, from B grade business schools. Today, I think it's becoming difficult even to attract talent from B grade
School.
schools. Forget IIM Ahmedabad and Bajaj Institute and whatnot. Also, I think the last 10 years has seen the emergence of several new sectors like management consultancies, startups, internet companies, and all these seem to offer a far better rate of growth to new management trainees than the advertising sector does. So, advertising, which at one time used to be a management trainee's sort of priority list to join, has now gone way down.
Okay. What are the 10 major changes that you have seen in the industry during the decade?
To you. So I think there have been dramatic changes. One is in terms of size, second is in terms of advertising. I think the one major change in creative in creative terms is that people, advertisers are now more conscious that they need to appeal to the heart and not just to the mind of the consumer. And with that in mind, people use the storytelling format in order to appeal to the consumer. I think that is one fairly important change that has taken place in the last few years. Of course, in media terms, I think changes have been dramatic from, you know, 7 or 8 touch points. We now have 50 touch points that we can reach out to the consumer through. This has made the journey complex, also more exciting and challenging. It's also led me to come to the conclusion that the current context it's not a very wise thing to go after lowest CPR. What we should be doing is not looking at interim measures, media output measures, but brand outcome measures,
Okay.
because that is what the marketer seeks, and that is how we should evaluate each medium on what role it is playing in delivering brand outcome. I think these are some of the significant changes. Digital, of course, has dramatically changed everything in the last 10 years, especially in India. In other countries, it had begun to change a lot earlier. But I think in the last 10 years, digital share has gone up from about 4% to about 19% now. So that's a big dramatic change. I think the big loser in this has been print, which has lost about 9% share points. Television has shown that it is a little more robust, but still it's lost 3 percentage points. The biggest gainer, of course, is digital.
Any things which has remained unchanged as per you?
Oh, of course, I think the fundamentals have remained unchanged, and the fundamental is that brand owners want to connect in a deep kind of way with their consumers and their prospective consumers. That desire hasn't changed, or that objective hasn't changed, and all brand owners want to reach out and connect with the maximum number of people at the lowest cost per contact. These two fundamentals, I think, haven't changed. But besides that, everything else has changed. The route that we use to achieve these twin objectives, I think, has changed dramatically.
How are the current advertisements different from those, about 10 years ago? And what are your thoughts on the old advertisement versus the new way of advertising?
Well, there is a phenomena that makes you look at things which are older and which happened some time back a little more fondly and think that those were good things and those were
Or
better
you were
than
told, or
those.
did you tell a story much better earlier than
So,
telling a
yeah,
story
I
now?
was coming to that.
Uh,
I think earlier you didn't tell a story. I
Okay.
think what you did is actually you just presented the brand and you presented its benefits. I think that was considered advertising, and I think the skill in the earlier days was to how well you could dramatize the advantages of the brand
Okay.
was the big thing there.
Yeah.
I think today we are past that stage and we think that, possibly because of technological developments, you know, there is brand parity virtually on everything. So in that situation, how do you find a place in the consumer's heart? And it's felt that you do that by telling a story. Because when you tell a story, the story may be remembered, and then the brand will be remembered along with the story and will find a place in the consumer's heart. So that has changed dramatically, and that is why you see the kind of advertising you see today.
What is the importance of a self-regulatory body like a NASCI and self-regulation in advertising?
I think it's critically important, and I think it kudos to the vision of the early founders back in 1985 when they thought of setting up ASCII. I think there was a time when not many people used to know about ASCII. I think the pastime of old fogies who would meet once a month and discuss a few things, and a lot of people used to ignore ASCII. I think it's not like that now. I think ASCII has proved that it's a very dynamic organization. It can keep pace with the times. It can meet an advertiser's genuine need and desire to put out responsible advertising in the marketplace. And actually, ASCII helps you along to do that. As you know, the alternative to ASCII is government regulation, and that would be 10 times worse. In fact, recently we had global awards for self regulation, and I was one of the judges on that. And one very interesting entry that I came across was, I think, from Australia, where with the help of a management consultancy, they've done a study is sort of more cost effective and how it can contribute in real terms. And I'm sure sooner or later we will do such a study here in India also. So over the last few years, I must say, the government also, in keeping with their belief of, or keeping with their motto of less government, I think has been encouraging ASCII, and they don't want to sort of interfere or step in to regulate what advertising should run and what should not run. They rather leave it to us and ASCII to sort of play a role in this. So the government has been very supportive of ASCII. Also, very many government departments like DOCA, the Department of Consumer Affairs, or Ayush, which is into these alternative medicines. They've all sort of appointed ASCII in some way or the other to help them do their job more effectively. I think there is more recognition among advertisers too that ASCII plays, not just a policeman role, but ASCII plays, in fact, a positive role in their lives in increasing the confidence that consumers would have in advertising. Because if advertising was to lose the confidence of consumers, then actually all is lost. So I think advertisers recognize that. Because advertisers over the years have had a few, if I may say, complaints against ASCII. So we have addressed each one of them.
Okay.
ASCII was first considered to be very slow. So we now have several measures, including a fast track complaint
Mechanism.
procedure to sort of fast track complaints.
Okay.
We now have a formal review mechanism that involves an ex-High Court judge.
Oh, okay.
So, an advertiser who's really aggrieved can use our IRP mechanism and the matter can go before a judge. We now have 4 CCC meetings a week, a month. So one a week. So, it really helps speed up complaint processing. A number of such measures. We also have a system of what we call informal resolution.
Okay.
So, that allows us to speedily resolve the matter.
Okay.
The number of complaints have gone up, which is a good sign that there is greater awareness amongst consumers. But this is one area that we are least happy with. I think the consumer on the road or in the market, by and large, is still not aware of ASCII, and ASCII's resources does not allow us to advertise ASCII. But fortunately here again the government has come to our rescue, and the INB ministry has requested many channels to put out scrollers or tickers. So they're doing that. Many channels, I believe at least about 20 channels have started doing that. So we think with that awareness of ASCII and the fact that this mechanism of ASCII is available to a consumer free of cost, I think is a tremendous
achievement
thing.
How has customer awareness increased over the years through these self-regulatory bodies like ASCII?
So I just
you just mentioned it. Yeah, so it's part of that question. Please tell us how ASCII has played a key role in curbing misleading advertisements.
Because of ASCII, I think the number of misleading ads that could get created in the first place itself has come down dramatically because of the increase in awareness of ASCII. We also have a procedure called advertising advice. So, if an advertiser has a doubt, before he invests money in making the film, he can come to us and show us the storyboard, and we can give him advice on whether we think this conforms to the code or not. We have about 300 members, so I think the 300 members get of all the complaints we received and what has been the decision on the complaint. So this is a tremendous learning, and what kind of ads are fined by CCC and what kind of ads are not. Every quarter and every year we come up with a huge fat book which is circulated to all our members.
Okay.
It's not just sent to our members, I think we also send it to
all the agencies.
People in society, not just agencies, people in society, like the government officials, government departments. I think we send it to some members of parliament, we send it to some ministers, we send it to bankers. So by and large we try and talk to the opinion leaders in society as to what we are up to. I must confess, we have a long way to go.
Yes.
But we have come a long way too.
How is the media planning and buying function changing today? And what will be the media agency of the future look like?
So, as I briefly spoke about it, the media function has become far more complex. One, because the advertising market has grown so dramatically. As I told you, it's tripled in size from 20,000 to about 60,000 crores. And thanks to new modern ways of living, including digital, the number of touch points that a consumer touches and which we can use to reach out to the consumer has multiplied phenomenally,
Okay.
and that has made our lives far more difficult. We now have concepts called journey life cycle planning. We use analytics and data in a very big way compared to earlier. So the media agency of today uh, looks, behaves very, very differently from the media agency of 10 years ago.
When you look back at the decade, what has been the biggest lesson for you personally?
And I think over the years, I would say I've learned several lessons. I think one big lesson I've learned is that advertisers very often make the mistake of under resourcing their brands.
Okay.
You know, it's not just enough to say, I am advertising. How much are you advertising? Because I have a fundamental belief that, if the ideal advertising amount that you need to spend is 100, and if you spend 99, you wasted all 99. If you spend 101, then you wasted only 1 rupee.
Okay.
And it takes a lot of experience and expertise to figure out where exactly that 100 is. So, and I think by and large, many advertisers make the mistake of under resourcing their brands. Of course, resources are always limited, but then you need to sort of either reduce the number of brands you want to launch. I think most companies and advertisers tend to launch too many brands, and then obviously they cannot support so many brands in advertising. And also, India is a very vast and diverse country, so I think it's very difficult to do justice to every state. So you need to consider regional brands, you need to consider test marketing, and only after you have sufficient confidence and you have sufficient money power that you can launch a brand all India, sort of recognizing the power of local and regional. Many local and regional brands are indeed very strong in their local and regional
Hyperlocal,
area.
yeah.
Promoters get the resources, they slowly and cautiously expand, and their expansion plan years, say over a decade, they managed to operate in fairly large parts of India with fairly good market share. So I would say my other important learning has been to never underestimate the power or the nuisance value of a local or regional brand. Well, I don't think I'll bore you with too many other details, but these are some.
Can you tell us about the most unique, nostalgic advertisement in the past 10 years?
Well, that's a difficult one.
You can name more than
There
one.
be many sort of brands. I think right now, what strikes me is one campaign from Asian Paints, which I would say is a difficult kind of brand to advertise because a paint is a paint, have the same finishes and everything is the same. And I think Asian Paints came out with a campaign. It said "Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai,"
Jagjit Singh.
which I thought was a very. And I remember then we were able to take it further by actually having a whole serial
Which you
with
co-branded.
different, where on that same thought and expanding on that thought, we took celebrities to their homes where they lived in
This
10
was on
years
Zee
ago.
TV. I
Yeah,
remember.
I
Yeah, it was
don't
on Zee
forget
TV.
where it was, but so that's one thing that I would